stories can be healing for other people.
Yeah.
I remember meeting my dad when I was 30 years old.
Wow.
And I had not had him in my life up until then. So as I was explaining to him some of the things that I had gone through and the things that I had overcome, he says, have you written the book yet? And I'm like, I'm not a writer. He said, have you written the book yet? And I said, oh, I journal all the time. He says, well, how selfish is it for you to have someone's healing sitting on your hard drive?
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Shifted my entire life.
Wow.
Because I hadn't thought about it like that.
Wow. That's deep.
Yeah, because the enemy's like, I don't want to hear your story. Who are you? Nobody's going to care. These are the things that I would hear.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Releasing the Fire podcast, where yours truly is the host. Listen, episode 1, we had a phenomenal interview with my dear friend and sister, Taffiney Williams, where she talked about her book, Your Story Matters. She talked about her story. She talked about where it came from. She talked about all the things that led up to her writing this book and how your story matters. And afterwards, we turned off the cameras and we were just sitting there. We were talking, and the conversation just got so good. We decided, you know what, let's turn the cameras back on. So I want to introduce you to and invite you in to episode 2, Your Story Matter, with my dear friend and sister, Taffiney Williams. Come on in.
List of questions. And I actually spoke with a young lady today about domestic violence. And it was interesting because she came from a very good family. Parents have been married forever. Grandparents have been married forever. She had never experienced or even saw any type of domestic violence at all. So she wasn't aware of the triggers or the warning signs, all the red flags. She had no clue.
Okay.
And I think she said the first incident happened prior to her actually getting married, but it was a very subtle thing that she kind of just like, well, maybe I'm just taking things the wrong way. She didn't pick up on it. But fast forward, he ended up accepting his calling to preach, and so he was the youth minister, and she worked with the kids, all the stuff. But at home, it was a whole different story.
Wow.
And so I didn't know that part of her story when she agreed to tell her story. I didn't know that it had anything to do with faith at all. But she did talk about how she ended up walking away from the faith because
of that. Yeah,
she got hurt, So, there's so many stories out there like that. Come to find out, there was some precursors to her ex-husband, doing those things because he had seen some things that were not appropriate at home. So I'm looking at it from the aspect of not just what happens to the survivor or just the survivor, but how it affects our community.
Yeah.
How it affects our churches.
Yeah.
How it affects our family. How it affects our parents. How does it affect our children?
Yeah.
Like, what does the dynamic of domestic violence do for our world?
Yeah. My God, it affects so many different aspects of life, for individuals. I know even the children, the children that are just sitting there and they're watching, they're watching that mother who's being beaten or what have you. And for young men, because my nephews saw my sister go through it, and it brewed anger. Because here it is, they're little, you know what I mean? They can't fight or awful. Even if you have a teenager or something like that, you put them in a bad space, and then again, you're looking at the probability of them repeating that cycle, whatever. And so somewhere along the line, that thing got to be broken. It has to be broken. So what you're doing is great.
And even vice versa. When I did my research, when I started, and it's funny how it came up, but when I decided in my mind that I was going to take on this project, I started doing some research, and I found that 1 in 4 women are affected by domestic violence.
Ooh, that's a lot.
That is a lot. But 1 in 9 men are.
Really?
Yes. And that's the exact look I had when I was like,
wow.
What?
Wow.
And these are the ones that report. So we're talking
most men
about
probably don't because
they don't.
They're embarrassed.
100%.
Oh my God.
And a lot of times the laughing stock of the police even.
Really?
100%. These are things that I've found out just in my research.
Wow.
And the largest statistic, and this really hurt my heart. The largest population or profession, for lack of better terms, that sees the highest amount of domestic violence in their situation are police officers and pastors.
That are the abusers.
100%.
Wow.
That's scary.
That is scary.
So,
especially, well, for both, because of you know, pastor, and you're, beating, your spouse. So it would be hard for her to come out and say something, because it's two things. She don't want to, embarrass him as a pastor in the community. And at the same time, she don't want to disappoint, the congregation or what have you. So that I could see why, a pastor's wife would just suffer with it and deal with it. Oh my God.
And it's not just pastors, people in ministry as a whole.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, you're in ministry yourself.
Yeah.
And so, you're out here and you're serving the community or whatever. You're seeing so much go great out in the community. Then you come home to a situation that is not indicative of what you get to see outside here sometimes. And, where do they go? Where do you go to talk your things out?
Yeah. Where's that safe place?
That's it.
You know what I mean? Wow. And so what would you tell somebody? Like, what would you say to a wife? Well, be the husband or the wife who is married to somebody in ministry and they're being abused. What would you tell that person?
That's a very difficult space. I know, and I'm not going to say back in the day, because I'm sure this is this way somewhere else, even as we speak. There is a safe place to be able to go to whoever that person submits to, whether it be a governing board, whether it be another group of pastors, whether it be...
So like if that person had a covering,
100%.
Like a senior pastor or something like that, an apostle prophet that oversees them, to that person overseer.
Correct, to the overseer.
Okay. Yeah.
Once you've had the communication with the person and say, hey, we got a problem, we need to work on this.
Yeah.
Give the person an opportunity to go to anger management. Work through all of the things, right?
Yeah.
And then once that has happened, go to a coach, a counselor, whatever that you're dealing with. But one of the things, and I can tell you from the perspective of a counselor, is that we are required to report abuse toward elder and abuse toward children.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're not required to report abuse against a spouse.
Or adult. Yeah.
An adult.
Wow.
And does that law need to be changed? I don't know. I feel like it does.
Yeah.
Because
I would agree. If someone asked me, hey, would you vote for that? I would.
I would 100% vote for it. Yeah.
Because, the mindset of someone who's been abused, you can get them to such a broken state, and such a fearful state that they'll probably never tell.
No, they won't.
So someone has to be that advocate, that voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so if they was to happen to open up, you know what I mean? That's their help. Because otherwise, they can end up dying. And so many people, so did you find in your statistics or whatever, like how many people actually die at the hands of an abuser?
I did not dig that deep just yet. It is definitely something that I'm going to be digging deeper.
Sure.
Right now, we're looking at getting the preliminary documentary out. As I was speaking with my cinematographer, we were talking about all the different angles that we could come at this. And there's different angles.
Yeah.
Are we looking to raise awareness? Are we looking to change laws?
Yeah.
Are we looking to give the survivors a voice?
Yeah.
Like what avenue, what angle are we coming at this with? And we were both at this space like, this is too big to do one documentary and just be okay. This could really truly be setting things up to have a series of documentaries, looking at it from all different angles, because every angle is necessary. So when I get to the point where I'm looking at those particular statistics, I'm sure I'm going to be, unfortunately, not happy with what I find out.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I went through an abusive situation when I was in Detroit, and it was in the early 90s. And I don't know if you remember, I don't know if you were still there at that time or if you remember, there was a rash of women being killed by abusers, you know, estranged husbands, estranged boyfriends that had left, and then they come back around, you know, knock on the door, you open the door, and bam, your head blowed off. Like I was in an abusive relationship during that time. And my mom literally called me and she says, "It's time for you to leave, because dude done called here and said, get my black dress ready."
Wow.
And so I was like, say less.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Absolutely.
Say less.
Yeah.
Say less.
Yeah.
And he
such
was
a blessing, though, that you even had a mindset to go, because even people knowing that there have been women that I've spoken to who were like, I know he's going to kill me, or I just knew he was going to kill me, or what have you. But, you know, he ended up going to jail for something else or whatever, and got, you know, whatever. But they, even knowing, they still stayed.
Yeah. Well, in my first marriage, it was that way. I think that, you know, my first marriage, I married when I was 16.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did. I married when I was 16, and we were married for 7 years.
Okay.
And so it was abusive during that time, but it was this subtle abuse. Well, it was this brainwashing. I tell people all the time, I was trained early. Okay. You know how you tell a dog to sit and stay? Yeah. And they sit and stay, even if there's nothing there to keep I was a sit and stay. I was trained. Okay. Yeah. So it got to a point where he didn't have to physically assault me anymore, like, because I was trained,
kind of like that elephant who
it was the elephant.
Take that elephant off 100%, and they're not going anywhere.
Ain't going nowhere, and that's where I was. Wow. I would lie for him. I mean, like, whatever. You know, I ran into a lot of doors. Wow. You know what I'm saying? A lot of stuff fell on me and hit me. You know, it was that type of thing, because he was so charismatic. He was a good guy to everyone, you know. Nobody, he would never.
Just a perfect gentleman to everybody.
100%. But you never knew what was coming through that door.
Whew, my God.
You never knew how he was coming home. You never knew, even if he went to the bathroom, what was coming back out. Like, you never knew. So you were truly on eggshells. Wow. When he was in the home, and even if he wasn't, because no one was allowed in. Like, even his mom or his sisters, no one could come to the house if he wasn't there. I couldn't leave the house unless he was with us. When I say us, it was the kids at the time. And so it took me a real minute to realize that I was being held hostage in my own home. Wow. There were times I was literally locked in the house. Wow. And the only way, because we had the deadbolts that you had to have a key from both sides.
Yes.
So, you know, you're locked in the house. Yeah. You can't get out.
And I don't know if you had those bars. You know, in Detroit, you had those bars on the windows. And
we were not. We were in Georgia at the time, so we didn't have bars, but it still was. I wasn't going to try to get out. I mean, I was, you know,
you
my
were
mind
scared to even think about going.
Yeah, couldn't work. But couldn't go to school, none of that. When I did get a job one time, he literally would drop me off at work, and he would stay. I worked at Walmart during the Christmas break one year. I think it was 89-ish, 88-ish or 89. And he literally would walk around the store the whole time I was on shift. And then when it was time for me to get off shift, then we would leave.
Wow,
so it was
about control.
Yeah, 100%.
My God.
He went on to pastor a church. He is... Yeah, went on to pastor a church, and, you know.
Is he still pastor?
I'm sorry?
Is he still pastor?
From my understanding, yes.
Okay, well.
He's an apostle, and...
prayerfully, he got healed, set free, and delivered.
Prayerfully, he did. My heart is always for any congregation that would sit under a leader who has narcissistic tendencies, or is an actual narcissist, which he is. And so I pray for his deliverance daily. He is still my brother in Christ. Yeah. Yeah. And I still have a heart for him to be set free and healed and made whole. Yeah. In that space. And I will always feel that way. Yeah. Matters not. Yeah. But so by me having that experience and being delivered out of that, when I saw the next situation come up it didn't take but once.
Okay. Which is good.
It didn't take but once.
Yeah.
And there was no abuse during the entire, I only dated this guy for about a year. There was no abuse in the year that we were there. We were together. The problem is when I said it's time for you to, it's time for us to split up and not be together anymore. That's when it was hold a gun to my head overnight, threaten me if I closed my eyes, he was going to kill me, like all the craziness.
Wow.
And then making that call to my mom, and because I left and went to a battered women's shelter, and that's when I really understood what battered women's syndrome was.
Wow.
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
But I literally was totally convinced that, he didn't want me to go nowhere because he loved me so much. He didn't want, it was just craziness.
Not knowing that is not love.
No.
Not ladies, men, whatever. That is not love. When somebody treats you horribly, they beat you, they constrain you, all of that is not love. It's control, it's sick, it's mental illness, it's on all kind of stuff, but it's not love.
No, it's not. And the isolation, one of the things I could always say about my first husband was that he saved me from the crazy of where I was and took me into a whole new crazy. But in there again, I was, and I can't put it off on age. I was naive. I'll put it that way. I was young, but I was also naive.
Okay. Yeah.
I had never seen, any type of physical abuse like that. I had never witnessed it. I had never heard of it even.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was not aware of any of the warning signs.
Yeah, we got to be really careful of the hero syndrome.
Oh, 100%.
Those individuals that come, we're going to save the day. You know what I mean? Oh, don't worry about nothing. I got you. You don't have to work. You don't have to do all of this. You don't have to, we have to be really, really careful about that or what have you, because why do you want to come save the day? Why do you? What are you doing? Do you not have a life that now my whole life has consumed you know what I'm saying? So everything about this individual, they're consumed now with just making your life great. That's not normal.
Well, I mean, it's creating an idol.
Yeah.
That's what it's doing. I mean, it's almost like what Satan did, right? What Lucifer did. Hey, come praise me. I can do it,
Yes.
And that's what it was. I had truly made an idol out of him.
Wow.
And
yeah.
When you're looking back over it, I didn't know it then, but looking back over it, it began to cause me to get a hardening of heart. And so when my heart started hardening, to where I had numbed all emotion, because I couldn't have emotions.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, emotions would have got me in big trouble. So, you hit me till I cried, now hit me till I stop crying. Like, what am I supposed to feel? Not knowing, not being able to identify what emotion I was even dealing with at the time.
Yeah.
And so how was that healthy when we were raising my kids? It wasn't.
Yeah.
So that perpetuated here yet another problem.
Wow. Yeah.
The children being brought up in an environment like that, not knowing whether it's time for them to play or they got to be quiet, or not knowing what to do, how to feel, how to respond, made them very nervous and anxious and all the stuff.
Insecurities and all
100%.
that. Yes.
No stability.
Wow.
No safety. Now, we were stable as far as where we lived. We always had food, never had lights, gas, water cut off, none of that stuff. All of that. Financially, we were good.
Yeah.
It was the emotional wreck.
Yeah.
And so now I'm seeing that, I see it perpetuating, You
see it show up like in your children and
100%.
Yeah. And those are the cycles that that we have to break once an individual, basically escape.
Yes.
From those, situations or whatever. Now you got to go back and get that person healed, but then you also got to go and break those cycles, those generational cycles, so that they won't perpetuate throughout generations or what have you.
And that was one of the things I was talking to one of the detectives or lieutenant and saying, like, what is the statistics or the percentage of people that you see that are, number one, either repeat offenders or that you see you've arrested the parent for domestic violence, and then 20 years later, because this person has been in law enforcement for well over 20 years, seeing that child of a person,
Wow.
arrested or, for the same type of things or whatever. And he said he's worked so many cases, he can't really, bring it up, but
recall it.
Definitely it's something that either they become the victim of or the perpetrator of the environments in which they lived in. So my question is, what's the solution? Like, it's great for us to be aware that there's a problem.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. What is the solution? And that's what we're really looking at. What are the things that we can put in place that would be able to be a safe haven for a person? In some of the smaller communities, there's not even safe houses.
Wow.
That's one of the things I found out as well, is that, one city in particular doesn't even have a shelter for people of domestic violence anymore.
Well, I would think, though, that if so, it would kind of be hidden.
It is. It's definitely hidden, but they don't have one.
Gotcha.
They don't have one. They had one, and something came up, whether it be funding, which is another thing that we're looking at, making sure that we get this out there for people to realize that there is a need to have a place where either women and children or men and children, because men get abused as well. Where they can have somewhere where they can go and be safe, at least for, 48 hours, something, until that person can be arrested or something can be something can take place so that they're in a space of safety for that period of time. And I don't know that people that don't deal with it, that haven't been exposed to it or whatever, truly understand what that's like. It takes so much courage to get up and leave.
Yeah, it does.
It takes so much courage to get up and leave for more than one reason.
Absolutely.
Whether it's they love the person, whether they can't provide for themselves financially, whether they're afraid for their lives. Like, there are so many things that come along with why people don't leave those types of situations. So what are the resources that we have available to them? Like, those are the things that I really want to bring awareness to. Is how can we help with being able to provide a safe space, or be able to, because I know we literally have the clothes on our back.
Wow.
Literally.
And, and I've heard so many cases that way where, mothers literally took their kids, took the clothes that was on their back, and they ran.
Yes.
Like, ran for that. I have a great friend who ended up she did that years ago. And she's doing well now, praise God. But it was her and her 3 boys, and she ran and got out of there. And she said she knew, he would probably kill her, but they got out of there.
Yes.
Yeah. So listen, you have to run. You cannot stay. It does not get better. It only gets worse. I dealt with it as a teenager. And, my father was a Detroit police officer. And I had cousins who were going through it or what have you. And my father would tell me, hey, if a man hits you, you need to leave. You need to walk away from it because it won't get better. But here's the thing I had to have people understand. You talked about those ungodly ties. My God, there's a ungodly soul tie that binds you to a person. And even if you try to get away, it's so hard, and so not saying that it can't happen, but you just, the difficulty is the tie, that soul tie, that once you get involved and sexually or what have you, and y'all know, because it binds you. And so therefore you need prayers, first of all, somebody praying for you, and you need to be praying for yourself, because I was 19 at the time, was not saved, didn't know the Lord, knew of him.
Yes.
Knew of him, but didn't know him. And I remember, because there were so many moments of time where, we were fighting and got crazy and all that. But I remember this one particular time, the last fight we ever had. I literally, I was running around like this table, and he was chasing me. And I remember there was something, it was like a voice that whispered, grab a knife, grab a knife and just go for what you know. And I remember just seeing like a vision of blood everywhere. And I'm telling you, I tell people to this day, this is a God honest truth. All of a sudden, I remember looking up, and it was over. He was gone. I don't even know how, like, it even ended. Like, I don't even know. To this day, I don't know. I just remember it was over. That vision happened. I seen blood everywhere in the vision. And then all of a sudden, it was all over. He was gone. I don't know what happened, how it resolved itself. I remember this same night. I remember being in the tub crying. And I cried out to the Lord. And I said, God, I said, you got to help us. I said, if you don't help us, if you don't intervene, I said, I'm going to end up killing him. He'll end up killing me. Somebody going to jail. I said, we need your help. And I remember laying down. I fell asleep. There was such a peace that had came over me. I fell asleep, and I remember when I woke up, I was at peace. And like, I think it was like a couple days later or something, he had called and said that he was, you know, in jail. And he ended up going to prison for a long time for something completely different.
Wow.
Well, I remember later on, years later, I remember, and I got saved a few years later, and then I began to get into ministry and God began to develop me in the faith. And I remember God sharing with me what happened in that situation. And in that, he took me back to, because I'm delivered by the time he shared this with me, was I dealt with rejection. Because my father, you know, walked away from us when I was a teenager. And he dealt with rejection at the age around 5 or 6 or whatever. His father had left him or what have you. And so you grow up, you know, with that, you know, with that orphan spirit.
100%.
And that orphan spirit literally have you, I mean, looking for love in the wrong places. It have you when you think, oh my God, this is my hero, and you know, or either you want to be the hero, and it's really like a sick and twisted combination, and it binds y'all together, and you have no idea that what y'all got going is just this crazy web of mess.
I call them trauma bonds.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
It's the trauma that binds you together. You are
binded by trauma. But look what, oh my God. But what happens when one of y'all, only one decide to deal with the trauma and the other one choose not to. Because that's now, so I'm going to go and I'm going to get me some help. I'm going to get cleaned up, because at the end of the day, I'm like, something ain't right. I'm tired of, you know, all the drama that keeps going on and what have you. I got to get myself together. So I get myself together. Guess what? But you don't. Oh, so I'm going to look up and be like, okay, I can't do you no more, because you gonna pull me back to that place that I got called out of.
Well, you realize that I remember there was a movie called Sleeping with the Enemy.
Yes. I remember that.
And it's not so much that it's the enemy, but it is the enemy.
Yes.
Like, you literally begin to see your trauma in the other person.
Yes.
That you have now been delivered from.
Yes.
And they may or may not choose to, or even acknowledge that they have that trauma.
Yes.
And so that's where I believe, you know, when we talk about domestic violence, there have been people who have overcome being an abuser. I know a young man specifically that was admittedly an abuser, but went through anger management classes, went through counseling, and realized different coping mechanisms, and was able to identify his problems and to do better. Now, he wasn't still with the same person, because there again, that trauma bond, right?
Right.
You get to a point where sometimes the person will even start doing things to make you angry, so you will act up. Like, because they're trying to get they want to get that reaction. Exactly. It's almost like
a drug, if you will.
Yes.
You know, it's like, oh, I need that fix. I need that fix. So that whatever it is, that spirit that's in them, it revs up, and it's like, hey, I got to get that fix. And then it's almost like they're not happy or satisfied until you get that fix. But when you stop responding,
that's when it all changes.
Yes.
That's when it all changes. It's like, oh, you don't love me no more.
Yes. I
love me.
You know, I heard a crazy story a few days ago about there was a lady, and it was a horrific story, but I'll tell you the part where she was young, and she married an older man, and he was like a knight in shining armor, just the perfect man, and all this other type of stuff, what have you. And after they got married, she noticed some things, you know, controlling and all this type of stuff happened. They married quickly. And so long story short, she said that in the course, they were married 5 years. And in the course of the 5 years they're married, he raped her 4 times. She said the last time he raped her was, so the first 3 times she fought him crying, no, like seriously, you know, and he went for it. The last time she said, you know what, I chose to just lay there and just let him do whatever he wanted to. She said he got up in the midst of it, didn't finish and left. He wanted that. He wanted that. So there's a sickness, there's an illness, there's something mental. You know, these things are not normal.
It's a control thing.
Yes.
It really is a control thing. You know, that's one of the things that I learned when I did the documentary on the survivors from sexual trauma, was that rape is not, sexual assault is not about sex at all. No. It's about control.
Yeah.
And so when they no longer feel like they got control, and you're not trying to fight them, it's no fun anymore. And it's the same thing with domestic violence, that I've seen people that when they get to the point where one of 2 things happen. Either they be like, oh, okay, you're going to hit me again? Like, oh, okay, well, come on, let's just go and get it over with. And or they're like, oh, we get ready to fight? Let's just move everything and let's fight together. Like, it's no fun no more. I can't intimidate you no more.
They want that fear, that you know, and it's such a, it's so sad because that individual have no idea that they need deliverance. You know what I'm saying? From probably that childhood issue that they never dealt with. You know, one of the things I talk about, you know, in my classes is that, you know, if you don't deal with your trauma, I don't care if it happened when you was 5, and now if you can be 70 years old, and you've never dealt with that, it's still showing up in your life. It's going to show up and it's going to take over throughout your life. It'll shift your personality. It'll shift everything about you until you deal with it.
100%. And I think a lot of the danger in it, especially people who are the offenders, is that they usually get into positions of power. And then that comes off on their employees. It comes off on their congregation. It comes off on their clients. And then that re-injures or injures the people who are submitted to the authority of whomever this person is. And they either turn around and take that home and you know, that's where they can have control, is at home. So it goes down, it flows from the top down. So it is truly a problem that needs to be addressed on a whole nother level, from the survivor's point as well as the offender's point.
I totally agree, because a lot of times they talk about the survivor, but okay, so what do we do about the offenders? You know what I mean? How do we track them? How do we follow them and make sure that they're getting the help that they need? You know, and I do know, just like anything else, that individual will have to want the help. They have to be acknowledged or what have you. But just taking them and throwing them in prison and then giving them a certain amount of time and then letting them out, that doesn't work. All it means is that they're going to get out and do the same thing.
They find different ways of doing it, how to get by with, I mean, you know, different things like that. And that was one of the questions that I asked, you know, the detective that I spoke with. Is there a requirement for counseling or therapy when people offend? And there is not. No, there is no requirement.
Really?
Now, sometimes they are charged, you know, when they're charged, they will say, okay, you can do this, and it. But as far as them being required to, there's no requirement. So if they go to jail, they just go to jail and serve the time. There's nothing required of them while they're there. And so that was a whole nother thing. I'm like, how do you feel that this person is going to be rehabilitated in any way, shape, form, or fashion if there's not a requirement? And there again, like you said, you have to be willing to do the work. But if it's never put in your face to say, hey, you're going to have to do this in order to be able to get out.
Well, you know what? And I will tell you this. I've watched some movies or some documentaries from back when, right? Of sexual predators, right? Sexual abusers. And one of the things that, I mean, I'm talking about the habitual ones that were, you know, like, I mean, some really serious stuff. They would say, the ones that got caught, They only got called because they wanted to get called.
Oh,
They were
100%.
tired. Like they couldn't help themselves. Like they wanted to stop, but they could not.
Yeah, that's sad.
It's very sad. It's very sad.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, you would have to ask, and we could, take it a couple of ways. We can get spiritual, but at the end of the day, everybody's not spiritual.
Correct.
So if we know, hey, that spirit, hey, that can be dealt with, it can be cast out. But even after that,
Mm-hmm.
then you still need, some sound doctrine. You need to be able to, disciple a person. You need from that place. How do I, not go there when these urges come? How do I deal with it? Because whether I'm saved, sanctified, full of the Holy Spirit or not, I still get urges. What do I do?
Yeah.
What do I do? You know what I mean? And so that's where I feel like it become not only a community thing, but then it become, it's where the church have to come together with the community and say, okay, let us create resources together.
Yeah.
That's going to handle these major issues.
One of the things that I think, and to piggyback on your point, I know in the state of Tennessee, I don't know about any other state, but in the state of Tennessee, the recovery organizations have partnered with the faith-based organizations to say, hey, the largest community we have is the faith-based community. Let's partner with faith-based community to help bring resources and things like that together for addiction recovery and mental health. Having something like that put together for domestic violence as well, I believe would be very helpful.
I do too.
Because you have the faith-based component, you have the mental health component, and a lot of times addiction is attached to the domestic violence situations.
Yeah.
So if you were to bring all of those things to the forefront and partner with our local churches or any type of faith-based organization to be able to be a safe place, to be able to provide the resources, I think that, together, collaboratively,
yes, absolutely.
There may be something there, even if it's, to deal with the children of domestic violence, to deal with the parents, because sometimes as parents, we see our kids. I know for me, I saw warning signs. I saw that things were going on. But I also knew when I was in that situation, couldn't nobody, I just had to be there when she's ready to leave. Because there was absolutely nothing that a person could have said at that time.
Yep.
Nothing.
That's so good.
Nothing.
That's so good. That's so good that you said that. I'm glad you brought up that point. Because sometimes you can't do anything but be a support.
That's it.
And let a person know, hey, I'm here for you.
Yep.
I see. And sometimes you have to see and not say. Because what a lot of time what happens, they'll end up defending.
That is exactly what I did.
Defending the person.
It's either defending the person or now I'm staying away from you so that you won't see the evidence.
Absolutely.
And so if he found out, then he's going to isolate her even more so that I couldn't see.
Yes.
So the only way was to keep quiet and pray.
Yes. And pretend as though you didn't.
I didn't see anything, that I didn't know anything. Oh, the light bulb fell on me and split my arm open. Oh, that's interesting. And keep on moving, knowing in the back of my head that it was something different. And be like, Father God, you protected me when I was in my crazy. So I know you're going to protect my child. You made me a promise that said, those are the kind of prayers decreeing and declaring that the angels would be around her and protect her and the children while she was in the midst of that situation. And that's what I had to do, and be there when she was ready to leave. That's it. That's all I could do. So, how do you handle that? How do you teach that? How do you get that to the masses to let them know when you see something that looks off? If you hear something that looks off, when is the time to call to have somebody to come help that person? When is the time to be quiet and pray? There's always a time to do both. But at the same time, that person has to be willing to leave the situation. Because a lot of times, once it has been brought to people's attention that this person is a perpetrator, now they're going to be more careful with what they do, and you're not going to see it. Or they're going to isolate the person even more. So how do you fix it? It's a huge problem that needs fixing. There is not one right answer. It's truly going to take a collaboration of people bringing their heads together to say, and I think from both sides, from 3, 4, 5 sides, right?
I agree.
From the offender to the victim, to the politicians, to the churches, to the parents, to the children, everyone that is negatively affected by this issue of domestic violence, whether it be physical, spiritual, mentally, or emotional, everyone that's affected is going to have to come together and, I believe, build a think tank of some sort. Well, oh yeah, you could try that, but when I was in that space, I would have did this or I would have thought that, and be like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it from that perspective. Because if you've not been affected, whether it be yourself or seeing someone else that you love being in that situation, you have no clue.
None whatsoever. Wow. That is so good. That is so good. And I'm in total agreement with you that something has to be done, because we're losing so many people at the hands of domestic violence just on a regular basis. You can turn on television, you can turn on these shows. It was one of the shows, I forgot what it was. I think it was Fatal Attraction or something. And it was another show that was similar, but literally back to back to back to back. I mean, the violence, the domestic violence was just, I just couldn't believe it. I'm talking about, and most of these shows were unto the death, you know, and it's just so prevalent, you know. So we definitely need to deal with it and tackle it, you know, heads on, and whatever I can do or what have you, or our ministry or organization we could do to be a blessing. Please don't even hesitate or what have you, because we need to make this known. We need to get it out here or what have you. And I'm excited that you're actually working on this piece. I know it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And we just pray that it does go into a series of documents that will literally just shift things, so people will just be watching and say, you know what, I got to get up and I got to do something. I got to make some changes or what have you. Because it comes to the point where we got to, you know, get off the bench and get into the game. You know, I think, and I'm speaking from a church perspective, I think for so long we've been on the bench. You know, we get up there, we preach, but then we're not proactive when it comes to actually getting out there, you know, in our communities and making an impact and making a difference, you know. And it comes to a point where, you know, and I'm all for, you know, moving and functioning internationally, but we have a national problem right here in our own country, you know, that we need to address or what have you. So we need to get busy. We need to get busy and jump on board. Yeah, we really do. One of the places where we really are desiring for people to jump in is funding. As we're bringing these types of stories to the forefront in order to produce things in excellence and make it available not just to ourselves, but to domestic violence shelters in places all over the world, it takes money. It takes funding. And that is one of the places where we definitely could use that in prayer, because you know, like I know, you come up against bringing the light into a dark place, you know the warfare that will come. But we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we have people praying with us and for us. And so we solicit prayers as we go forth in this space, that even the people of faith will be receptive to standing up, talking about it, and being active in producing something that can help everyone that's in the situation. Wonderful. So if people wanted to give, how would they give? Where can they give to? So right now, I don't have a place set up, but it will be set up on that Journey with Taffiney website, or either Taffiney.com. Our Journey to Impact website is always up, and you can donate there at journeytoimpact.org. Or we're on Facebook too, so you know, you can connect with us at Journey to Impact on Facebook as well. So that is where we will be kind of just looking at making sure that we're pulling the right people together to make sure that this project doesn't just sit on a shelf. People do documentaries
all the time and they sit on the shelf. That is not what we plan on doing with this project. We're looking at putting it on public television. We're looking at doing film festivals so people can be aware. We're looking at especially all of the faith-based film festivals and places where we can get it out here where people can truly realize what's going on and see where they can plug in their own communities as well as in our nation.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I got a strong feeling that this one won't lay down. This one, the Lord is going to just put his hands upon it, and we're going to see just a great movement in the earth regarding this, because it has to happen. He's concerned about, he's concerned about his people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those, that are lost, those that are bound, or what have you. And he is the one that are, putting the passion, on the inside of us to get things done in this hour. And so we're going to see great movements in the earth. And this is why he have those of us preparing even the churches as a whole, getting the churches ready.
100%.
To receive the masses and the multitudes or what have you.
Yeah.
Right now, they're not quite ready, but we're getting there. We're going to help get them there or what have you. And so we're excited about what God is doing or what have you. Great things are on the horizon, regardless of what it looks like out here in this earth or what have you. God is in control, and he's putting things in motion. And so, there's great resources that are out there already, and some that are coming abroad or what have you. But those things that have been kind of hidden or whatever, God is bringing to the forefront. He's exposing, and he's creating avenues that we can set up to have individuals get their lives in order. And so
goes back to your story matters, because it's these stories
absolutely
that people are. It's amazing how people are literally ready to share their stories.
Yeah.
And their stories will be a face of hope to other people who are struggling. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, once again, we're so grateful to have you, honored or what have you. And you're just, I'm telling you, you're just such a blessing just to this earth. And we're just glad and honored to know you and count you as a friend.
Thank you.
Yes, and sister in the Lord.
Amen.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Listen, we're going to put all the information, Ms. Taffiney's information, we're going to put it down there. If you will, please like and also share and what have you, and subscribe. Thank y'all, and y'all have a wonderful day.
I say, yeah, buddy, rolling like a big shot. Got cleaned up and I only serve a big guy. Fresh start time, fresh new mind, free on the inside, free on the